This episode of Rockland Sound is sponsored by Rob Reiner Fine Art Paintings. Find custom Anvil shirts, artwork, and more by Rob Reiner at robreinerart.com. Thanks for Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rockland Sound, where Rockland turns into Rockland. So I'm one of your hosts, Tom Osa, and as always, we have our host, Mike Doherty, and we are really looking forward to this episode because Mike has been looking forward to speaking with our guest today for several weeks. And if you've been following the last few episodes, he's been hitting the pavement, contacting some really cool artists over the last several months, and we are really fired up to introduce Steve Kudlow, Lips from Anvil. So thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you, and we're looking forward to just gabbing and bullshitting and talking about stuff.
Okay, good. Let's get going.
Yeah, cool. So Mike, I know that you're like a huge fan, so I'm just going to turn it over to you and I'll just hop in here and there. So have at it, man.
Well, like many a person, I was a fan and stayed a fan. And then somehow in the growing up process, you kind of fell off the radar for me, forming families and doing things. And then your movie obviously came out. So the second that popped up on my radar, I went back and started digging through the treasure trove there, and found some of the old CDs and threw them back in. And I was like, oh, I'm an idiot because they're as good as anybody else. So I've been wasting time not keeping up with you, which is really bad. If you ask Tom, I'm a huge music fan, and I usually stay current and follow the artists that I'm loyal to, which one of them would be you. So I'm very honored to have the opportunity that you took the time out to talk to us.
Oh, that's great, man. It's good to be here.
I have a funny story that I think got me your email address from Rob. So
Right.
my pool, and I'm playing. We're hanging out drinking and stuff. My wife and I, and everybody's also mingling about doing their thing. And on my phone, I got Legal at Last. And so I put it through my Bluetooth and I'm playing it in my whole pool. A whole bunch of the rockers like, what's that? And I was like, Anvil. And they're like, could you play that again? So I ended up playing it 3 times straight.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up getting them. They're putting the name of the album in their phones. So I think I gave you some new fans there of the new album.
Oh, that's good to know, man.
Yeah. Spreading the word. Now we're obviously locked down. You're in Canada there. What area of Canada again are you in?
I'm in Toronto, in Ontario.
Okay, so with being locked down, obviously you have a lot of time, I assume, to write music.
Oh yeah, I'm already good. Well, finished the next album.
All right. Any name to it yet, or any title here or two that you could drop out?
No, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's all right. We don't blame you.
Not a good idea.
No,
Yeah.
I had to try though.
Sometimes
just
things
to be clear,
change even in the last minute. You never know. So there's no point.
yeah. No, we respect that. It's like, there's all this legality, and we totally get it. But it's just nice to know that you guys are still out there. They're putting out new music, you and them. And you've been for decades just hitting the pavement and just doing what the most important thing is. It's like, we got our day jobs. I'm a musician, Mike's a musician, but we pull the 9 to 5 as well. And it's just great to know that like you guys are out there doing it because you love music. That's the important thing. We love that.
And you ended up with the opportunity of the movie to get you where you wanted to be for where you can go out and tour and basically, I assume that you're able to live off of the career?
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting. I just had a conversation with John Z, the guy with Craze Management, the guy that basically discovered Metallica.
Mm-hmm.
We've been friends we've been friends for 40 years, maybe more. And we were just talking about all this last night. It's doing this all for the right reasons. You don't do this because you want to make millions of dollars. That's not what it's about. You
Right.
want to make, and it's not about who sells the most records or anything like that. It's not a competition. It's not a horse race.
Right.
Right. So it's art. So ultimately, I think in the whole end of the day, I think what makes the guy that wins is really not the guy that makes the most money. It's probably the guy that's the most prolific and writes the most.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Amen.
There's always the tortoise and the hare story too, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if you can be that creative, and I think that that's the ultimate winning person, is the guy that can write the most tunes, really.
Well, I think that was one of the moving things about the movie, was that your sister stood by you in
Right.
that one circumstance and defended the artist in you, and, you know, and the passion that you have for it, and that is something that, you know, in a lot of our families it was like, oh, don't pick that thing up, you know, don't, you know, put down the, you know, you can't sing, you can't write. I write, you know, I play guitar and write and everything. And I got beat up a little bit about it until later on. My mother saw me playing to, you know, a club, and people were dancing, having beers and having fun. And she started dancing, and I got her, you know. So that was the success right there, was winning that one over. It didn't matter whether or not it was Madison Square Garden. It was, I broke her through to my side, and she was always supportive of, you know, until she passed. So I think that's the thing that I was attracted to about you as a musician and an artist.
So, and just as a side note, so for everyone that's learning about Anvil for, you know, possibly even the first time, and, you know, there are bands out there that are just unbelievably prolific and last for decades and decades. If you're like really into music, like me and Mike are, you know, you go into the deeper cuts, if you will, the ones that are really in there, passionate about the music, away from all the, you know, the music industry stuff where you like, you know, you got to do every last thing. You got to schedule your toilet breaks and all that stuff. So, you know, these are the kind of guys that are like really out there doing what they love. So just as a background, there's a video that you can check out on Amazon Prime. It's called Anvil, The Story of Anvil. And it's an amazing movie. I'm not even going to go into it because I want to turn this back over. But just as a primer, check it out on Amazon Prime, Anvil, The Story of Anvil. So my question to Lips, if I can ask this, is, you know, and I hope that this isn't, you know, doesn't become like a boring thing that you have to do to bring up the story again. But from your perspective, you know, from your, let's say, your reality that you've traversed through this lifetime. So how did the story come about? You know, you lived this. So, you know,
how did it come about?
A little bit of, yeah, a little bit of the history. Like, you know, how did it build over the years? You know, you're out there working and, you know, touring. So anything you want to tell us about the years as you're building a following and growing?
Well, what basically, you know, it's a hard luck story. It's hard knocks, but it's also a story of great inspiration, and in a certain sense for other musicians to take notice of, or at least admire, if nothing else, and hopefully not be jealous of, which is a great degree of what the music industry is filled with, is a lot of jealousy. But aside from that, to get anywhere, it takes a lot of hard work. You got to be willing to do a lot of things that some people just, it's got to be part of what makes up your personality, to be able to withstand uncomfortable situations, to actually be on the road, and especially in the early days, You know, we started out in very early 1978. Actually, the winter of 1978, we went up to Quebec City and played our first show as Lips. That was the band's name at the time.
Nice.
And of course, we're all filled with piss and vinegar and very, very stubborn and very, very cocky and very, very fucking full of ourselves in the sense
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
well, we went out all like thinking that we're going to, you know, take the world over, right? You know, you're 20 years old. I'm going to go take the world over. It's going to take no time at all. We should be big stars within a few months, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
do.
we went out there and we tried going out completely as an original band. We didn't do any covers at all, which is completely unheard of. You just don't do that. And we found out the hard way that you don't by not doing it and seeing what happened. So, you know, but having said that, people were really well impressed at that first show. But the thing is, they're going, after they come in on Monday and Tuesday night, everybody goes away going, well, that band was great, but I don't know any of the songs they played.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need some product out first, right?
Which is a real problem, right? So when they tell their friends, "Hey, man, you got to come see the band that's at the local club tonight," and they're going, "Okay, well, what do they play?" And they go, "I don't know." So what we did is, you know, the agents and the managers and everybody that was involved with us said, "Hey, guys, like you guys got to do something about this. There's a demand. You could easily get shows. We don't have a problem with that. But what do we tell these club owners what your repertoire is? You can't say, you know, you can't go Bondage and they're going to know what it is, or School Out, stuff from our first album, especially because the album hadn't been recorded yet." So at that particular time, that was the big Nugent years, right?
Right. The free for all area like that time.
Yeah, we're talking about Cat Scratch Fever era, right?
Right.
So we picked up. What we did is we picked up, I don't know, maybe half a dozen Nugent songs, and what we did is we stuck them between all of our originals. So we do 2 originals, 1 Nugent, 2 originals, 1 Nugent, you know, 2 originals, 1 Kiss, you know, 2 originals, do Born to Be Wild, you know, Jumpin' Jack Flash, you know, Johnny Be Good or whatever, right? It was just basic cover tunes.
You still put the emphasis on your originals, and that's the still.
Yeah, it was still 2/3 original, but along with that, we started our own version of explosions, right? We had using gunpowder and all kinds of crazy. I mean, we were really crazy, like doing really, you know, gunpowder explosions indoors and shit like that. Pretty.
The good old days when we could do.
Yeah, I certainly didn't know what we were doing, but we did know what we were doing.
When we were kids.
Well, it sounds like James Hetfield should have talked with you guys before that whole thing happened and whatnot.
Right. Where he stood over the pot or whatever.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, well, that same kind of thing happened to us, where the roadie, the way that these things were worked is we'd set these extension cords up with a switch on it, right? A light switch. You flip the light switch, kaboom, right?
Oh, wow.
but basically, they were.
That's great.
They're metal. We used the little metal boxes that you normally would wire a light switch or an electrical outlet into, like an electrical box. And we'd have 2 terminals, and we'd put a copper wire across across it, and then bury the whole thing and fill the whole metal casing with gunpowder, and tea with a mixture of triple FG and tea. And what this would do is it would give you it would set off, and it would be a slightly slow burn, but what most effective was the sparkles, because the tea was going on fire and being thrust into the air. So sparkle bombs, right? And then there were the other kind of concussion bombs, which were made out of 35 millimeter, the 35 millimeter canisters that film used to come in. The little plastic containers. Well, what you do is you put a hole on each side of the little plastic, run the little copper wire through it, and then fill the canister with gunpowder, and then take black electrical tape and wrap it up.
You were creating pressure.
And attach that to the two terminals and throw the switch. Anyway, one night, of course, we had a concussion bomb that was supposed to start the night, but the guy threw the switch and it didn't go off. And then he goes, "Oh shit, I forgot to plug it in," right?
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh yeah, exactly. Exactly. So the guy goes over to the stage with his face right over top of the bomb.
Oh my God.
And then plugs the fucking thing in. So it's like kaboom, and his hair's all out like this and all frazzled and gray and shit, black all over his face. And he was our backup singer. He actually helped backup singing at the light board. And he was our light man and special effects guy, and this is the guy that did it. He goes back at the board, and we have a song on our first album called "Ooh Baby." I don't know if you're familiar with it, but in any case, he started singing like he's Al Jolson in blackface.
So
I was fucking dying, man. It could almost on stage, right?
It's probably like a Wile E. Coyote sort of thing. Like, he gets all these Acme gunpowder and everything.
He's doing the background, and the choruses are "Ooh Baby," and he's going, "Ooh Baby." Right?
So if I'm reading that correctly, it sounds like you were the one that came up with some of the ideas for creating these, if you will, pyrotechnics, like some let's just say some spectacle. Or were you the person in the band that was like, yeah, we need to make this
No, not necessarily. Now this particular guy that I'm telling you about is actually a legendary guy.
Okay.
He actually was Tony Iommi's guitar roadie.
Right, from Black Sabbath.
And it's actually quite interesting because he was a doorman that worked at the big major club in downtown Toronto here, right? And as it turned out, Black Sabbath were recording the Never Say Die album here in Toronto, and they were coming into the gasworks, into the club.
That's cool.
And that's where this guy met them. So he started hanging out with them and shit, and he eventually let Tony know that he's a left-handed guitar player. So Tony went, "Okay, I'm going to hire you as my guitar roadie.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
String my guitars and do all the shit." So they took him with to England, right? And this is the legendary guy that they locked in the back of the pickup, in the back of the trucks, the transport trailer trucks with all the equipment.
Right.
To go across the border into Scotland.
Uh-oh.
Now, come on, that's like going into Quebec, right? There is no fucking border, okay? But they put the guy in the back of the fucking truck inside some bass bins, and they finally get up to Scotland, and then they pay the police to come to the gig and pick the guy up and take him down to the station and hold him there.
Oh,
Wow.
there's a world-class hazing.
Yeah, that's hazing. That's Black Sabbath style hazing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's actually interesting because that character, that same guy, of course, from doing that tour with Black Sabbath, he got to know AC/DC, and he got to know Van Halen.
Nope.
And we're talking about Van Halen after their first album. So as it turns out, this guy comes back, got fired, got himself fired basically from Black Sabbath. And
geez.
we're back in Toronto now. Black Sabbath is coming to Niagara Falls, which is about 70 miles from Toronto. So we drive out to the fucking Niagara Falls. We get busted at the border for 5 joints. And Jimmy Carter was the president at the time. So they didn't put us in jail or fucking do much. They took it away from us and charged us $50 and let us go to the show, right? So we get to the show, and that's when, and I was what, 21 years old. I'm fucking hanging out with the Van Halen guys on their first tour, right? I mean, it's just like unbelievable circumstances. And it's funny because, and then of course, you know, a good 25, 30 years later, I you know, after, you know, we had been with the Sabbath guys, we got to know them a bit, but at that show, they remembered us, meeting us at that many years later. They're going, "You're kidding. You're the
That's
Canadian,
awesome.
You're the colonial Canadian cunts that we met."
Yeah, but you see, you know, that shows that they're genuine people.
Yeah, they were. They're really, really good guys. I mean, there were a lot of things through our careers that brought us together in different capacities, in different circumstances, and we'd have a good chuckle about all through the years, right?
Speaking of
I'll be right. I just got to grab a beer. I'll be back in like 3 seconds. Mike, you had a question?
Yeah. Speaking of the fact that you brought up Van Halen, and this is a sad week for anybody that loves
of course.
music. Do you have anything else to say or share about him, or what he meant to you?
It's actually really interesting because Eddie was extremely shy. He was not like not one of these really outspoken kind of guys. Not that kind of style, right?
Right.
So,
but on stage, like, wow, oh my goodness.
Eddie, or the live Eddie.
It was really fascinating, you know, I mean, I was only familiar because it was only the first album. We're talking about really months after the first album came out, completely aware of it because I owned the album, but this was their first tour in North America, probably maybe their second or third show in North America. In that regard, is actually remarkable. So for me, it was my first time, actually maybe my second time ever being in a big show circumstance where I could see it, and, like, see what's behind the
music,
monitors. I've never been up there, like, to actually stand on a big massive stage. You know, it's like you don't really get to do that until you're really doing it, really. And here I was probably really 10 years before I actually did get to do that. Right. I was getting to see it from the standpoint of, you know, being in the midst and being in the way of the guys from Van Halen setting up. Hey, excuse me, we got to set this Marshall up. Oh, wow, that's Eddie's Marshall. Wow, let me see that. Wow, look at that. He's got power. He had power transformers running his Marshall heads and shit.
He had
using, and because that's how he would control the volume. I did as a 20-year-old. I'm going, what the fuck? Why has he got fucking? And what I thought was that he was using, you know, British heads.
Oh wow!
And they were 220, and he had to change the voltage or something. I couldn't figure out what the fuck that was about. And it's actually interesting because only the other day I watched an old interview of him talking about his equipment. And there he is talking about that fucking shit that I saw. And I'm going, son of a bitch, he was using it to control his volume. Who the fuck would have? It
Yeah, crazy shit, man.
never even,
Crazy
you wouldn't
shit.
even know, you know? You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? So it's just kind of fascinating. Getting to look at his guitar up close and kind of strumming it a little bit and looking at it. It's just kind of really cool shit that you never forget, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that would.
And I had those opportunities only with Van Halen and not with Black Sabbath because Black Sabbath gear was behind theirs.
Ah, yeah.
You're
The
not,
stack.
yeah, you're not seeing
Stack.
Tony's guitar sitting right out there. And I
Mhm.
never got to see it up close until way years later, right? But
Mhm.
aside from that, it was Eddie Van Halen's guitar I'm holding in my hands, looking at it, going, "Wow, fuck, you know, look at this shit."
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But I mean, we're talking about this is, you know, it's like I'm saying, this is his very first tour of North America that they were doing, and I was lucky enough to actually, and I'm gonna explain to you how I got there and why I was there.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a very, very interesting night. So we were backstage with the Sabbath guys, and particularly with Bill Ward. And Bill Ward was sitting on a regular kind of hard plastic seat had the identical one sitting in front of him. And he was practicing his drums, like warming up.
Right.
And as he's doing that, we were talking. It was the following day after Keith Moon passed away.
That was, yeah. May he rest in peace, man. Seriously.
Yeah, and Bill Ward was telling us about his friendship with him, right? Which is like, wow, fuck, this is unbelievable, man.
Mm.
And Ozzy was sick as a dog.
Yeah.
And the first time I ever saw him, he was on the floor of the change room, leaning against the wall, with a bottle of it looked like rum.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
milk,
yeah.
and milk. I don't know what the fuck he was drinking, man.
That's
That's
a weird
He's
combination.
drinking some kind of weird combination because he needs it for his voice because he's sick and
Like his
whatever, right?
White Russian or something.
You know, and other things that are just bizarre were things that you have no clue what the fuck. There are these green compressed gas tanks, like compressed.
Yeah.
And they're
Like
oxygen tanks.
pure oxygen. Yeah, like a pure oxygen injection, that sort of thing.
Yeah, but with masks, with an oxygen mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's sitting beside the fucking drum set.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
pure oxygen.
So when Bill would get fucking tired, he'd fucking breathe pure oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, you know what? As I think about that, that's not a bad idea. I think I'm gonna get that for my drumming. Just keep the oxygen in the background. Keep me alive until the end of the frickin' set.
Yeah, we almost killed Tom during the show. He almost had a heart attack or something.
He killed me multiple times, bro.
Yeah, I
So, I mean, some of these things are pretty interesting because who's gonna tell you that? Where are you gonna see that? I never.
Seriously.
What the hell? You know, and I'm just telling you about that's a very early experience. You know, I was 21 years old, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, in the beginning of the movie, where you show the stadium shows that you played with Bon Jovi and everybody,
right?
Had you played any more? Because I know a lot of those European and Japanese type of festivals, you know, they play out all through a summer or whatever. So was there multiple shows like that that you were on
in the early days?
Yeah, initially.
No.
Okay, so that was like you hit it there.
We did Donington, Monsters of Rock. We did the Reading.
Yeah,
Reading Festival. We did a show in Belgium, and no, two festivals in Belgium, another festival in Leeds, England, and that was it. That's the festivals we did.
Okay, and that was
years.
based off the strength of the album. You had some promotion behind you from it.
To a certain level at that, and in those days, listen, man, people cut it out and hype it up and say that we were a big fucking band in those days. We were a support band that was getting lucky and being added onto big fucking bills, and never were able to sustain it or get a long major tour anywhere, particularly in the United States. So that you can have a little bit of insight. By the time we did our third album, there was a lot of interest from labels and everything. Big management in the USA, everything was looking up. Like we thought everything is gonna fucking happen. So in comes this big time manager who managed David Krebs, the big manager by the name of David Krebs, who managed Scorpions and I mean, that's how we got on that Bon Jovi show, you know, like, so he got involved. It's all wonderful. It's all great. We write a bunch of songs, and he goes to take it to the record labels, and they go, well, we want the first 3 albums.
Oh, yeah. They want to.
But we're not paying for them. So what do you think? The label that we were signed to, the Canadian Independent, there's thousands of dollars owed to them still because they haven't recouped, because they haven't been able to get distribution in the USA. Meanwhile, metal is on the rise, and they could be making a fortune from Anvil, but there's no way to get it distributed unless they give it to the labels for free. So this happened in somewhere around 84, late 83. So it couldn't.
Okay. Gotcha.
No record deal. Okay. No record deal until 87.
Okay.
So that's a huge. All the momentum that we had gained was gone.
This says the metal on metal that I'm holding.
Yeah.
Obviously, the printing on this is from 2009, but it does say Attic Records up in the top.
Yeah, of course, because they were the guys that put up the money for it.
Yeah.
And I've been paying off a huge debt at like fucking 25 cents a copy.
Jeez.
Wow.
My goodness.
So in other words, I'm never going to make money off the fucking thing. And I never have. So that just gives you some kind of idea of how that all went. So there we were for 4 fucking years, the most important years in the metal history, without a record deal.
So that whole that prime time spot kind of flew by.
Yeah,
you know, but
the ship sailed and off it went.
Yeah, but
that didn't mean that I was going to stop. It just kept on going. Wrote about 30 or 40 songs at that particular time. Then we kind of had to wait till we could get clear of the contract that we had with the manager. And that's a whole other ball of wax, because that had no fucking length of time. That's just until he wanted to let us go.
Oh, yeah, it seems like a lot of people.
It's just really fucked. And meanwhile, he's not going to he wasn't getting us a record deal, so we're just sitting in dead limbo for 4 fucking years. So finally, Michael Schenker was playing here in Toronto, and David Krebs, the manager, shows up at the venue, right? And I see him there, and I grab him by the fuck, like I did in the movie. Like I did in the movie, and I said, "You let me out of my contract, you bastard, or I'm gonna fucking kill you."
Yeah,
so he let us out of our contract, and then we signed. Then I was able to move ahead with a deal that was actually acquired as a result of the guitar player from a band called Snow White from Chicago had a copy of our demo for the Strength of Steel album. He gave it to Metal Blade Records.
There you go.
And then William, who now works for KNAC, was an A&R man, and he got assigned to Metal Blade. So we did 2 albums with them. We did The Strength of Steel and Pound for Pound, and a live album. And then it wasn't, and then after that point, we found deals in Europe. And we had a Canadian label at one point called Maximum Records for about 6 months. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because it was like the shortest record deal we ever had. And it wasn't really a record deal. It was a distribution.
Yeah, it sounded like something that you weren't a fan of at that time. So I get it.
No, it wasn't. It was something that wasn't really meaningful. There's something to put the record out in Canada. That's fundamentally and basically what it was. It was just a way to get that particular album worth the wait, getting distributed in Canada. It ended up not distributed at all in the United States. One of our few records that never saw any American distribution that I know about.
Wow.
And until only recent years. So, and it's one of the most impressive albums that we have. And isn't that the way it always is too? Because it was the album that we did when we got a new second guitar player, but it was a second lead guitar player.
Okay.
So, and it was the guy that ended up in Overkill.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a long history, man. You're asking for a short history lesson, and it was a long book. So I don't know.
Great. Hey, you know what? You telling us the story is more interesting in the sense of, just us picking at questions, even though we do have a few. But you're telling your story. And the reason we wanted to talk to you is your story.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy, as you can see, but as we're going through, we're talking about, you have record deals and you put out records, you're putting out 3 at a time, 4 this, and we're talking about over a duration of years now. You know what I'm saying? Like, we put out those 3 records with Metal Blade, but it's over like 4 or 5 years or something that happened. So it's like, holy shit, man, time is blowing by, right?
And we have, I mean, from what I understand, you've released 18 studio albums.
That's right.
A few live albums and a few
one live album.
One live album. Okay. Yeah. So that's, I mean, just that litany, that catalog of music. I mean, that just speaks for itself.
Well, that's exactly. If the band was not a success, you wouldn't be talking about a band that has 18 albums.
Right.
Something that isn't successful doesn't have albums.
Staying power. Definitely. And that's
beyond staying power. It's even beyond staying power.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's a permanent. It's a permanent band. Like the Rolling Stones, but not with the money that the Rolling Stones. But okay, now, but, and I say a big but, and what I mean by that is both bands are there for the same reasons.
Absolutely, the love of music.
Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely.
Money has nothing to do with why the Rolling Stones still exist.
Yeah. And that actually brings me to a question I wanted to ask you. You'd brought up about being able to use some of the equipment and kind of like getting connected with some of the really cool stuff that's out there. So what have you done to stay connected with, the best equipment?
It's really has nothing to do with us personally as much as it does with who you're hiring to do to your recordings.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know,
So if you,
sometimes, hey, you can have an absolutely amazing equipment, and you got a fucking idiot who doesn't know how to use it,
uh-huh.
True.
right?
Mhm.
Probably at all levels too. Like I'm sure there's some fucking
Hey,
idiots out
hey,
there that are, you know, yeah,
that sounds like a whole lot of drummers I know about. Right? Hey, I got a set of drums. Well, that doesn't make you a drummer.
right. Seriously. Yeah.
You
You
know,
know,
it's like guys with studio. I got some great gear. The guy got his head up his ass. I don't got a fucking clue what he's doing. So
Seriously.
that's useless.
yeah, I've played with a few guys that didn't even know how to make a Marshall sound good.
Yeah,
And
right.
if you can fuck that up, it's over, Johnny.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, that's the thing is, it
Yeah.
takes you know, what do they say, 10,000 hours to become professional.
Yeah, yeah. And
I
that's,
mean, ultimately, you better do your 10,000 hours before you start flapping your mouth off.
Do you have a certain like a practice style? I mean, you know, you've been pumping out albums and doing tours over the years. How do you stay fresh? Do you have like a
Oh,
routine?
I never really have a problem or issue with people have talked about that. I think that you either are or you aren't.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it.
Either you're got an imagination and you can come up with stuff, or you don't and you never do.
Yeah.
and do you stick
And
to
I've only known guys that are either or. Either they're coming up with stuff all the time, or they never come up with nothing
Mhm.
Right.
ever, right?
Mhm.
And I've had musicians of both kinds in my band. An example of that is let's say the the guitar players that we had, the different guitar players. The first guitar player that we had was Dave Allison. He was strictly a rhythm guitar player. That guy was a writer.
Mhm.
That guy was a writer. He had an imagination. You know, so it's actually fascinating when you think about it at that level. And then the guitar players that we had afterwards, I wrote everything, and they're just
Uh-huh.
playing accompaniment to it. That's not the
Yeah.
same. That's not the same thing. That's not writing.
Mhm. Now, in the lineup that you have now, which you're a three piece, and you've kind of done that for a long time, or a while. So, I mean, since after, like, right in that end of the movie kind of time. Now, is everybody writing now, or you mainly come up with the basic idea and then
No, it's really ultimately it's exactly now when I say that Dave was a writer, he wrote lyrics,
okay, that's what I
but
was trying to clarify.
but to my specs in the
Mhm.
sense that I'd tell him what the song is going to be about.
Mhm.
I'm still, although when I say write, you're helping me,
Mhm.
but I'm the guy you're doing it for, and you're doing it under my.
Yep. Your watchful eye, right?
That's right. So in other words, I'm the boss, and I'm
Yeah.
responsible for it all. So in the end, and the real truth is, the person that does that, and who is making, okay, let's say you come up with a line, I go, no, I don't like that, and then you come up with another line, I go, oh, I like that. I chose it.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
I get it. To quote a line.
And what and the way that like, if you looked at it on a technical level, you're not the person who comes up with the idea, use this line, that they're not necessarily the person that wrote it.
Mhm.
The person that decides that they're going to use it is actually the writer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The filter system, the guy who's holding the pen, I'm going to write that down. That's the guy who wrote it. It ain't
Yeah,
the
Chiefs
guy.
and Indians, though. Chiefs and Indians.
Okay. And it's actually fascinating in the same sense that, like, with, let's say, if we're talking about artwork, and I come up with an art concept, let's say let's say that, as an example, our best of album was called Monument of Metal. And I come up with the idea of putting a big, huge, giant anvil in the middle of a park.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right? So it's a monument, right?
Mhm.
Now, because I've already envisioned this and said, this is what I want. I'm the artist. I don't have to draw it. I don't have to take a picture of it. All I have to do is come up with the idea, and it's my piece of fucking work. That's how artwork works.
Mhm.
Well, that's that driven thing about you again.
No,
That-
I'm just saying that there are different. To learn about what writing is and who is writing and who is playing accompaniment and whether accompaniment is part of writing. Those things are really simple black and white facts that a lot of musicians get lost in.
Right.
You know, I think a prime example is a guy like Ted Nugent. He was like a fucking tyrant.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we know what kind of person he is. He runs his band. I'm the boss. Fuck you if you don't like it. Smell you
Uh-huh.
later if you don't like it. It's fine with me.
Yep.
And
I have a question.
ultimately, even it's like I said, the guys would come up with lyrics, and he'd be sitting there going, "I like that. I don't like that." And then when he put his name on as the writer, the guys in his band lost their fucking shit, right? Hey, but those were my lines. Wait a minute.
I do have a question on the copy of the Metal on Metal I'm holding. Everybody's credited as a songwriter, though.
That's right.
So now, what made it was to where what you're describing now is something that you've learned.
Okay, now what happens? What happens is with a lot of bands, because you don't share everything, everybody feels they got less to be there for.
Got it.
Right.
And ultimately, what made Ted Nugent's band break up let Anvil continue being the same band for almost 20 years before we started going our separate ways, right?
Yep.
That's what the difference is.
Yep.
You've all got something to lose. You've all got something at stake, and it's
I'm
all
starting.
equal.
I'm starting to get your vibe, and I'm glad that we had as long of a conversation as we have thus far. I'm starting to get your vibe in that you are driving. I mean, not, of course, it's a team effort.
I do. Hey, no. I do. I did what was necessary
Yeah.
to make the chemistry work. And
Yes.
if it means, okay, I'm writing every bit of the music. I'm overseeing all of it. But at the same time, you guys are also working. You're here going through the growing pains as I arrange the song. I'm saying yes or no to everything, and you got to live through it all. Here's your piece for it.
So you're I would say you're help to facilitate the culture of the band that is Anvil.
That's right. Now, what eventually happened, which turned things differently as time went on, because of course the original guys are gone, so you're getting new musicians in the band. How can I give them 25 or 33.3% of the
that whole thing.
Man. It's like, come on, like that's not right, is it? It's one thing if the whole band is all there from this day one together, but when you got guys that are new guys, why are you giving them? You're giving them your percentage, your own percentage that you worked for fucking 25, 30 years for. So eventually, what eventually happened with the newer guys, I did a very, very slow process. If you stuck around long enough, we'd give you a little bit more as we.
Yeah, it's structured nicely.
It's what seemed to be. Okay, so what eventually happened, of course, the movie happened and all this, that, the other. and then it turns into then of course now you've got the movie comes out and you've got two guys in the band that are now really famous, and one guy who's a sideman that no one even knows the name of, or really even gives a shit about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what it turned into.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we wanted it to turn into that, or whether, and it's not necessarily whether it turned into it, it's what the reality of the situation is.
Yeah.
The guy's not the original member. You're not an original member. The guy who made the movie made a movie about the two guys that he's known since he was a teenager. He didn't know you until he walked in this 30 years later. So him is you're and at the end of the day, when you watch the movie, Mad Dog is more important than the bass player and guitar player were.
Yeah. Yeah, those two guys have been around, hanging around you guys forever too.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that in view of the movie, that anybody watching the movie, they actually have more recollection of Mad Dog and Cut Loose than they do of Ivan and Glenn Five.
Go figure.
And most people don't even remember their fucking names.
True. I rewatched it the other.
Anyway, I mean, it's not anybody's fault. It's the way it is. It's the way
it is what it is. Yeah.
It is what it is. It played itself out. Anyway, what ended up happening, they quit.
Yeah.
They couldn't handle it. Ultimately, that's what it was. They could not handle that they're not going to get the recognition, and they ended up quitting.
Yep.
Then when they walk away, they're saying to people that they wrote all the songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're bragging and saying that we're never going to get anywhere, and here we are. What, some 10 years later now? It's
yeah. Where are they?
Another 5-6 albums since you've been gone. Guess what? Survey says wrong.
Right. You know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because we just interviewed the drummer from Great White, Audie, and you know, another great guest, and he mentioned to us pretty much the same thing. Is like, you know, we auditioned for different people in Great White, and you know, you could smell when somebody's just trying to get a paycheck. You could just smell it. It's like, all right.
Oh, and we had, you know, after the guy. After Glenn Five, he left us in the middle of an emergency. We had a huge U.S. tour. We had just come back from Europe, and he goes, "I'm fucking quitting." Well, we've got a fucking 6-week tour coming up. What do you mean you're quitting? Oh, you've got a few weeks. Get another guy.
How soon after the movie was the tour with AC/DC?
Oh, probably. I don't know. I never really thought about it. I guess
I'm just trying to put it all in context. That's all.
It's all within the year of the movie coming up. Everything that happened there.
How many shows did you play with him, real quick? Just, I'm from New Jersey and Tom's from New York. I'm in Texas now, but
we got to think. I think
Stadium.
4 or 5. We did 4 or 5 shows.
Okay.
Nice.
But to see a Giant Stadium is the mecca for us, you know, being from where we are.
Pretty much.
I'm so proud of you guys.
Oh, that's great, man. I'm thank you. What can I say?
And you killed it too. So that's on top of it. That ain't an easy crowd.
No, opening for AC/DC is not easy. No one's there to see you, so you got to kick some ass and hope that somebody noticed.
I think you guys know how to do that already, so.
For real.
Yep. You know.
So I mean, those are the things about and about emotionally about how royalties and money affect the musicians in the band. And if you don't do the right thing, it's like what ended up happening. Of course, like after the movie, even after they got shares in the actual business and songwriting that they never really took part of. That wasn't enough to keep them there, because ultimately they weren't getting the physical satisfaction and mental satisfaction of people knowing who they were.
That's cool. Mike, you have any specific questions you want to mention?
Well, you had one, but I'll set it up. Because this
Okay.
is more Tom's area. The title of the newest album is Legal at Last.
Right.
That's a pretty obvious title. Songs like Nabbed in Nebraska, obviously, you know, they lead you somewhere. Tom has a question in the same range of
So my question actually has to do with the culture shift in Canada. So, you know, and we've had the opportunity to interview two reputable individuals in Canada. And, you know, just in terms of the culture in the United States right now, obviously there's a whole bunch of shit going on. I'm not even going to bring into that. But as far as, so a while back, just, you know, somewhat recently, marijuana became legal both medicinally and recreationally. Now, you know, I don't know nothing from nothing. I mean, I'm just looking at it from like a culture standpoint. So I guess, you know, and if this is something that you're comfortable with bringing up, how would you say that the culture of Canada has shifted, or maybe it hasn't at all? Is it something
actually, that's actually the real truth, is actually nothing's changed at all.
Huh.
sarcasm.
You know, everybody figured it's going to change. And what, you think more people are going to start smoking pot just because it's legal? No. People who don't smoke pot, and they're not going to start.
Got it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, you might, maybe 1 in 100 might be a guy like that, maybe, but more than likely not.
So generally speaking, it hasn't led to, you know, let's say more discord in society. It hasn't led to more, you know, safety issues or anything. It seems like kind of natural.
Oh, you know, what's really weird is they made a big deal about it at first, and they're still kind of doing it like MADD, M-A-D-D, you know, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they're putting up a big fuss because, you know, you're driving impaired. Well, I think that they need to. The biggest problem is they haven't. The real truth is there is no way to actually measure it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's the thing.
They can't measure it. They can't tell whether you smoked a month ago or just minutes ago. So it's fucking useless. They can only find that you have it in your bloodstream, but they can't tell how long you've been high, if you're high, and you can have it in your bloodstream, and you do have it in your bloodstream for fucking 3 weeks, apparently.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, little residual.
But are you high? No, you haven't been high. And some people have it in their bloodstream, are actually taking it medicinally, CBDs, which has no THC.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
I sit here for like my, you know,
So they're not even getting high. They're using it for pain or whatever, right? So they can't measure it. So there is no. But at the same time, the ridiculous stupidity. People have been driving and smoking joints behind the wheel for 50 fucking years, and now that it's legal, you're gonna start squealing? Like, come on.
It's like that whole thing from like Cheech and Chong is like, you know, yo man, am I driving too fast? I think we stopped, man.
You would
well,
know.
I mean, that's a thing. I mean, you know, I'm not going to make judgment calls for everybody. Each person is an individual, and marijuana affects everybody differently. So
right, of course,
I'm not going to advocate go smoke a big whack of it and get behind the wheel. Some people can't handle it. So,
and just as a disclaimer, I'm talking specifically from a societal standpoint. You know, individually, I mean, that's a completely different thing. I'm just curious, just so you know, my background is I went to college for history, which I found out afterwards means, hi, would you like some coffee with that? But, you know, just understanding, you know, the culture shifts just from, you know, almost a scientific point of view, if you will. So, you know, I get it. I'm just curious.
It's made very little difference as far as general life. That people just the only impact would be those who are smoking and getting in the car.
Right.
then you're kind of worried, oh shit, what if they stop me? And they can stop you, and then they can actually say that you're high, and then you're fucked, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you prove you're not, or you weren't, or you're not high enough, or I don't know, like, but so far I haven't met anybody who's been charged, so I don't know. And I think they got to catch you actually driving and smoking.
Well, you would know if I was.
Then I would say that they've got a case. But if they stop you and you haven't got any pot on you, and the car doesn't smell like pot, they haven't got much to really, because there's no test. There's no test.
Yeah.
So the inspiration behind naming the album, is it just sounded like it fit for you, or was it trying?
Well, no, it was a matter of a number of different things. Legal at Last had a lot of different meanings to us. Mm-hmm. It was also kind of a statement. It means like it's okay to like Anvil now.
Oh, well, see, that's clever.
There's sort of that, and the other thing was a celebration of the fact that it's legal, and the reasons, and more so the reasons it became illegal, mm-hmm. are more important to keep in mind and understand, so that we can make better of the future. Mm-hmm. And what I was, and the lyrics are touching upon it. Sometimes some would say obvious, and some would say not. But obviously, songs like Gasoline, it's talking about using the use of fossil fuels. I talk about chemtrails, and all these things are environmental issues. Well, the truth about marijuana, if you know anything about it, it was not made illegal because it got you high. It was made illegal because it was going to put the cotton industry out of business, and pulp and paper. Mm-hmm. Which is thinking about some of the two biggest industries in America in the 1800s were cotton and pulp and paper, making paper. So they make books, make fucking everything that we do out of paper. Not needless to say, things that are made out of wood. Okay, so we're chopping down half of our fucking forests. Not to mention what's going on in the Amazon. But look at what we're doing just with trees.
Yeah.
Now, all those things can be made from hemp. We can make all of our pulp and paper from hemp. We can make plastics. We can make fuel. It's just an endless list of.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thomas Jefferson was a huge farmer of hemp back in the day. Huge farmer.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Of course, he had all kinds of use for it, because it could be used to make forms of plastic. Now, if you start talking about plastic, then that brings in our song, Plastic in Paradise. You're talking about what we've done to our world because of plastic, and as a result of plastic, and how we're using it. Well, meanwhile, we could be making certain substances from hemp that are biodegradable, and you wouldn't have an ocean full of fucking plastic bottles.
Yep.
Well, when you were talking about cotton too, I think at least in America, the dollar bill is made out of cotton. So if you think about how, or at least that's one of the things.
That's right. Well, that's right.
Right. So think about how many dollar bills we go through.
And hemp is way more durable, lasts way longer. If we were wearing green jeans rather than blue jeans, man, you would buy one pair every 10 years.
For real. Totally digging that. Anything that helps the environment. And it's funny because I'm a Republican, which is not necessarily synonymous, if you will, with environmentalism, but I'm a Republican, but I consider myself a tree-hugging Republican in that, we only have one environment, and we absolutely have to, as best as possible, take care of it. And it just seems logical to be able to facilitate things that produce a better good, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
we're
you
not,
guys, so you guys you're been pretty safe with this coronavirus and everything. It's
Generally, yeah.
Texas was
Mike, you
pretty
want to
fucking
take
bad.
that? Yeah.
well, where I am in Texas, it's a bigger state than the, well, maybe not all of New York, but we're a pretty large state. We're pretty spread out. So
Right.
there were a lot of what happened was, I think, a lot of like the testing wasn't so good. It's getting a lot better. So a lot of the things that like were coming back were anybody that showed any signs of anything was being admitted to a hospital, and being called COVID for a while. As it seemed to have gotten better, it's down, 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 down. My wife actually works in a hospital, and there's no outbreaks or anything going on. But on the East Coast and the West Coast, there's been where
Yeah.
I think where people are locked down a little bit more, they're the ones that are actually kind of, you kind of got to be out in nature to build up an immunity too.
Yeah.
There's two sides to it.
So
I'm not a doctor, but we're all right here.
Oh, that's the main thing. Just
Mhm.
stay
How
safe.
about you guys there?
absolutely. Yeah. How about you guys in Canada? How's things over in
Well,
Toronto?
we're in a second run of it. We're getting
Yeah.
in our province. We had close to 1,000 people infected in 24 hours.
Wow.
That's pretty
Wow.
bad.
See, well, here's one of the things too is that, well, you're well. I noticed it looked like behind you had a fireplace going at one point. So, or no, was that not? Oh, okay. Maybe it was just the light that was flashing in the background.
Well, it was what it was the sunset,
Oh, okay. That's what it.
and the leaves were flickering.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
light.
I didn't know if it was like getting colder there because you're in Toronto. Here in Texas, I mean, we're still 90 something degrees. So, it's kind of hard to keep too many things going when, germ wise, when it's 110 every day. But you do what you do with your masks and whatever else you got to do, I guess. And, it's funny how people need to relearn how to wash their hands, apparently, because I learned that about two
Yeah. And just as a background, just so you know, so I'm doing this from New York. That's where I live. And Mike is in Texas. So, and he and I know each other from New York, both our New York and New Jersey days. But yeah, the culture is completely different. And, I get it, at least as far as like New York, everything's a little tighter, a little closer together. So it requires, let's say, a greater degree of caution. It just makes logical sense.
I mean,
How are you guys with the president? Who's is Oh, you guys are laughing. You look like you're. I'm not. I have no say and I have no opinion. So
well,
Yeah. You want to go first, Mike, or should I? I don't want to get political. We don't want to alienate.
are you
audience.
guys on the same side of the row, or are you?
Yeah, Mike and I are pretty much on the same side. I mean, I guess let me put it this way. I mean, this is a good way of putting it. I have total respect for anyone that has diverging viewpoints. So, as a disclaimer, I voted for President Trump back in 2016. Obviously, he's made some missteps. I think he's had some successful moments. He's had some unsuccessful moments. So, we get it. But that being said, I would respect anyone that, has a diverging opinion from that. So, it's just like we all, thank God, we all go into the voting booth and we have one vote. And for those of you that are listening today, please make sure that you get out and vote one way or the other, because that's the thing that really changes how you feel about things. It's our vote counts, and we're all blessed to be in places where we can be able to do that. And again, that said, I'll say this just on the real, the thing that bothers me the most is when somebody attacks somebody's character if they have like the diverging viewpoint. I mean, it's like, let's say for instance, somebody is like, oh, I like candidate A, and the other person, candidate B, is like, oh my God, I can't believe it. You should like burn in hell till the end of time. And you're like, geez, I just had an opinion about something. That's the thing where I draw the line. So I actually have a list on Facebook for people that attack me over that. And that's where they remain. And they just, they don't see my posts about shit like that. So yeah, I'm like, it's all good in the hood the way that I look at it,
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. I don't know what to make of it. You can't watch TV.
Yeah,
I can't and will not watch CNN anymore. Can't do it.
Propaganda TV. But for my sake here, and it's pretty much in line with Tom. One of the reasons why we made the podcast, obviously, is our love for music.
Yeah.
And, wanting to share your music and even local bands and our music that we're going to be making. So with this year, we were trying to kind of, we don't want to pound everybody with the politics because everybody's so sensitive about it. And
yeah, right.
We're all getting hit with everything else, from COVID to Van Halen dying, whatever.
Yeah.
I like the fact, our country is kind of weird. We go for, 2 years, we go 2 terms one way usually. And if we do let somebody to 2 terms, we go the exact opposite way.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I don't know, that's been history. And I think with the
pendulum leadership, right?
Yeah. And I think with attention spans these days, they're even less than they were 20 years ago. So we went from somewhere to a businessman type. That's part of the thing that I did like. The economy was doing well, probably better than it has in years. And then the COVID hit. And then you could go and judge whether or not that was handled well or not. And, and how communicatively some people, take how he talks. And, all that is like mixed up. I just want us to be able to keep our freedom, learn how to be respectful of each other. And, back in the day when I was a kid, there's a guy that had a Reagan sign and a guy that had a Carter sign. And we still, we would still all grill together and nobody gave a shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Your business, your business was behind your door. Whatever happened in your bedroom or wherever else was your business. And now everybody's like, oh, you put 17 candles on a cake, and then flip out. They have a candle fetish. I don't know what the hell they think, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's really people are really fucked up right now, man. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah. Look,
honestly, from my perspective, and as somebody that has money invested in stock market stuff, I'm hoping he stays.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't really give a shit because nothing's going to make any difference. But this guy has a fucking bad bowel movement and the fucking stocks go down. We don't want him
funny.
out.
Well, one of the funny things about him is that they all loved him. Everybody that hates him politician-wise loved him until when he was donating to him as a businessman in New York City. And then
it's funny that you mentioned bowel movement because I got to go take a piss, but I will be right back. Hang on 1 minute.
After station identification.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have the conversation while he's doing that, and then guess what I'm gonna do? The same thing.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think the thing with Trump is, it's funny they were giving him awards with Rosa Parks. If you know who Rosa Parks is, that was the woman that
Rosa Parks, right?
They were giving him, medals with her for being a champion of the minorities and things, and then he's the Nazi. Well, 6 million people he did not kill. So, I'll worry about using these words, but I think people are watering down words like racism. And
that's a thing, man. There's a lot of terms that are that people are using that are completely incorrect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
completely incorrect. Okay, and it's not.
I mean, there's a
they're
thing
being used. They're trying to be used in a hateful way, but you're going, well, wait a minute. Like an example, they got this apparently a group that they call Antifa, which is
Mhm.
anti-fascist. Well, fascists
Right.
are what Nazis are.
Yeah.
So if somebody's an Antifa member, they're anti-Nazi,
Well, I'm 20 minutes outside of Austin, Texas. Okay. And I
right?
know you guys have played down there before.
Right.
Next time I will be there. Um, but they're on our highways. They were on our highways, blocking traffic like people like my wife trying to get to work. And
Okay.
then the governor came in and said, well, watch how fast I get you off the highway. And then a whole bunch of plastic bullets and tear gas canisters came, and they haven't been back. But they are downtown, and you know, they're carrying around rifles and different things. And I think it's just people that just want to start trouble. It's not about a cause. I think there
No,
are.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that by calling it something, that's what I'm saying. The terms are not, doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. I don't see these guys fighting off white supremacists or Nazis. If they're really Antifa, if they're really anti-fascist, why aren't they fighting Nazis? What do they want from regular guys like me or from society? What the fuck?
Yeah, average Joes. You know, it's like whatever.
Excuse me. There was a guy that they had the interview with this Antifa kid from Austin sitting there saying he's holding a rifle, and he said, I will shoot a cop, but then they're going to shoot me back. And he's like, but I'll find a way to shoot somebody tonight. 5 minutes later, after they interview him, he goes around the corner and there's an ex-military guy delivering food. And they go and they attack his car. And he pulls out his gun because he had a concealed carry. And they shot each other back and forth. And the guy that said, I'm going to shoot somebody tonight, he missed. And the vet got him, and that guy's not here no more. So for whatever boredom or whatever thing he needed for his free time, probably would have been better picking up a guitar. But he chose something else. And I guess it ended up being a result
of really, really bad.
You know, I mean, that's a waste of a human being that could contribute something. You know, maybe would have got his head together a few years down the line, and who knows what he could have given us.
Right. You know, it could lead, you know, immaturity at the beginning, and then loss for all of us. You know?
I'm going to take my moment of running.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, as we're winding down, we're actually you know, this is the longest interview that we've had thus far. I mean, we've only had 4. But this is the longest one because we just kind of got into a rapport, and that's what we enjoy. I mean, you know, we could talk about the history of all the bands and artists that have been on here, but it's really a lot more fun when we're just going back and forth and talking about various topics. That's what we're leading up to, and you know, thank you for.
Yeah, it's actually more interesting than talking about.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
You get more of an insight into personality when you talk about other things.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just like, you know, there's some warm ups, and then we could just riff and everything like that. So, and, you know, is there anything that you'd like to mention? I mean, Mike's going to be back in a minute as well, but is there anything you'd like to mention? You got a new album, undisclosed title. We're not going to mention that, but you have anything that you wanted to mention?
Well, we're hoping that you know, things clear up a bit, in the sense that the pandemic kind of takes a hike for a bit, and we're hoping to come down and tour in the USA next spring into the summer.
Nice. Are you doing anything in the East Coast area?
I believe all over, playing everything. Well, at least they're planning it. Let's get through the pandemic, and then we'll all be good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I spoke with you know, there's a band that you know, there's Shipping Out to Boston is the name of like the song that is I guess like the popular song from this band. It's called the Dropkick Murphys.
Oh, and, right. Yeah. I've heard of that.
Yeah. So I reached out to them because we got a nice little stadium in Rockland County. It holds like about 6,000 people, but it's like so freaking underused. It's unbelievable. It's like for games and for various things, there's only maybe like about, I don't know, 500 to 1,000 people there. And the way I look at it is like, it is like the perfect spot for bands. Let's say if they're playing, the city.
Yeah, but how much does it cost the promoter to rent the place?
To rent it out is $12,500.
Okay, well, there you go. That's a lot of money.
Well, true, yeah, but I mean, in terms of promotion, I mean, in my mind, and I have a 5-year plan for this. I mean, I don't want to make it like we've have it all together, but the 5-year plan is we're literally 35 miles away from New York City. Okay, so the market there is 20 million people.
Okay, you're right.
Certain. Yeah, so I'm more than certain that, given the right promotions, and obviously I'm not going to do this on my own. I mean, we're going to get a serious company behind it that's going to help out.
You're right. It can be very successful. It can be, but you need money to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we're going to take, I mean, the 5-year plan is 2025. That's what that's our objective. And we'll build up from there. We'll make the right connections, and hopefully we could put on.
Maybe I'll be playing for you.
I mean, that would be great. We're looking to make connections with anyone that has like really a good feel for something like that. The county has the right name. It's literally called Rockland.
Yeah. Lips, I have a funny story. When we were interviewing Audie from Great White, I mentioned that Tom was a website designer, or web designer, I mean, and he goes, "Wait a minute, ours sucks." He's like, "Do you think I could talk about maybe hiring you?"
So yeah, and I was I didn't I appreciate it. That's awesome. That's that sort of thing. But just being able to like really make connections with people that have, I mean, you've been on the road, you've done a multitude of studio albums. It's just great. We're loving this. We're not quitting our day jobs. I mean, I do web, Mike is in gold. So, we're just enjoying every moment of this. We don't need to like make the big time. Just connecting with you guys is all the worth it,
I do have one thing to say for me. Okay. Like I said, had Metal on Metal around the time it came out. I walked in the store and actually bought it because of the cover in the import section. And it to this day, I was a teenager at the time, and I'll be 50 next year, and it's still with me. So thank you.
No,
all right,
no problem. Thank you, man.
And I'm still picking up the new albums as well. And great job on those. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here. It's great to have been somebody that looked up to you, and I'm looking equal at you, and yet still looking up to you. But, I'm enjoying having this opportunity with Tom, and I think we make a pretty good team there. And we can knock down these barn doors of these viruses and things, and you get out there playing again. I'll be down there if I'm welcome to review your show in Austin or wherever you play in Texas, and take some pictures and promote the crap out of it for you guys.
It sounds good to me, man.
All right. I appreciate your time.
Cool. Well, all right. So I'm gonna take us out again. Thank you very much, Lips, for being with us today. We really appreciate it. It's been an awesome interview. And so for those of you that are listening, this is Rockland Sound podcast number 4. You can check out some of our other podcasts. It's on YouTube. Just do a search for Rockland Web and look for that particular channel. We got them all laid out in there. Or if you go to Facebook, you just do a search for Rockland Sounds inside of Facebook. You can also just look for us on RocklandSound.com, and the podcasts are available in a multitude of places. And we look forward to doing many more quality interviews. Guys like Lips, and guys like the dude from Great White, Audie, and it's just a great time. So again, thank you very much, Lips, for being here. And for those of you,
thank you. Yeah. I had a great time.
Yeah. Oh, great.
We'll catch up again at some point.
Absolutely, that would be our honor. And your story is an amazing one, and you're definitely somebody to look up to as a musician.
Well, thanks very much, man. You have a good night, and a lot of good luck ahead for you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. We'll
Okay.
catch you soon. Much appreciated.
All right. Have a good night, man. See ya.
Good luck
You
with
too.
the stocks.